Stanley.
Hi, Mickey.
This is episode 4 of In the Right Direction, and today we will be talking about
Friendship.
So this was a subject that, Stanley, you brought up before I left the last episode, and I've been stewing on it in my mind over the last week. I'm excited to talk about it because, obviously, I won't say, like everybody, but like most people, friendship is certainly an important thing. So the first question I want to have, we'll just jump in kind of simple. Do you currently have a best friend?
No, I don't currently have a best friend. I have several close friends, and they have been terrific, helped me, sustain me along the way. I don't believe that everybody needs a friend in the same way. Some people are desperately lonely if they're not with someone all the time. I think you and I talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I know at least one gay couple who, as they say, are sort of joined at the hip. They are with each other without a break. That would not be for me. So I think people need friends, but not always on the same level.
Yeah.
So we should talk about the degree to which you feel you need friends, and I'll share my feeling too.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, I've always found it funny, the term best friend, because I feel like it's a relic that we all have from our childhood. This idea of earning the spot of best friend, because when you're in middle school, elementary school, even high school, saying like, this is my best friend.
Yes.
It's kind of like a position that you earn, and it feels like a badge that you get to wear when you're a kid. I'm so-and-so's best friend, and he's my best friend. And then you lose it, you get into a fight, and you're not my best friend anymore. I see it a lot with my sister when she was a kid. And I find it funny that as adults, we still use these kinds of terms like best friend to think that there's some sort of hierarchy in your friendships that everyone falls into.
But you said that, now I've forgotten the fellow's name, has been your best friend, the one
Grant.
that you traveled with.
Yeah, Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I do use the word because I suppose it's just part of my vocabulary since I've grown up. But I don't use it in a way that Grant is my best friend, and so therefore no one else is. He's the number one at the top of the list. He's my best friend in the same way that my friend Gianni is my best friend, my friend Dylan is my best friend. I go to them for different needs, and I enjoy different activities with them. But I value all of them equally in terms of what they've provided for me in my life. And I suppose I bestow upon them, I'm doing air quotes, the title of best friend, again, as like a relic, but it doesn't mean to me anymore what it did when I was 12.
Sure.
Sure. So my question to you now is what do you value most in a friend today?
I would say dependency, dependability. Dependency, that's me. Dependability. I, am limited physically in my range of motion, not in the apartment, but in the world at large, so that if I have someone on whom I can depend to go out with me, to help me bring in food, because I don't go shopping very much, and with whom at times I can share really intimate personal feelings. And interestingly for me, as time has gone by and I have ceased to date women as dates, which I did in the early years before I came out, though I don't do that, in a way the coin has flipped, because now some of the people who I think of as very close friends are women. And that didn't used to be.
That's interesting. Would you say that someone, let's assume that someone, a man who's straight is friends with a woman who's also straight, and that there is maybe some generalized attraction between the two. Do you think that they can be friends? Do you think someone who's attracted to the other person can be
Yeah, I
friends?
do. There's lots of ways you can love someone. To go back to that
Yeah.
that word that we throw around so much, you can love people in different ways.
Yeah.
One of my oldest friends, Pauline, lives in Dallas. We dated through a little bit in high school, a lot through college. She met her future husband through me because she transferred schools. And when she moved to Northwestern, I had graduated by then. She was a couple years behind me. She met her future husband, who was a medical resident. They got married and had a long, long marriage, 3 children, lots of grandchildren. He has passed away. But she and I have been friends through all of that, years and years, decades. And I speak to her all the time.
Wow.
I've stayed with them many times in Dallas, and it's never been really a sexual relationship, but it's been a very intense, I would say, love kind of relationship.
Yeah, an intimate relationship. Would you say Pauline is your oldest friend? Your longest friend?
By now, just about.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
My longest term friend, it's it's funny because I used to, again, grade my friends in my own head at least based on how long I've known them and how much of my life they've witnessed. My oldest friend, her name's Jessie Harrington. Hey Jessie, if you ever hear this, but I've known her since our parents were in Lamaze class together, so they knew each other when we were in the wombs of our respective mothers, and then they both gave birth to us, and then we met sub 1 year old at a McDonald's, and then we ended up going to kindergarten together, and remained friends, until this day. I've known her all the 28 years of my life. And we were not always best friends when we were in high school or middle school. But after high school, we became very, very close. And I think that there's something about having someone in your life like a Pauline for you that
Yes.
has been witness to everything.
But yet that girl is not your girlfriend.
No. Which exactly, I was going to say, I believe vehemently that men and women, or women and women, people who are attracted to each other, depending on their orientation, can be just friends. Regardless, I know a lot of people who don't believe that if there's some sort of sexual attraction, then you can't be friends. I don't think that's true. But I think that there's something beautiful about, even if you're not best friends, there's something beautiful about having someone in your life that knows everything, that you don't have to explain anything to because they knew you since you were a child and they see you now. It's kind of like someone who's read the whole book.
I would like to ask you something else, but though I agree with you there, is it possible to get along for a while without a friend? How about time alone?
When you say a while, how long do you mean?
I don't know, even several hours, half a day, a full day. Do you ever have time when you really feel like, I don't want a friend right now, I don't want anybody, I just want me?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel that way, which is funny because I'm a very, very extroverted person. I think I said it.
You certainly are.
Yeah, I am. I know that I get fuel from other people. I need other people to
Yes.
feel value in life. I like to see joy reciprocated in order to believe the joy that I'm experiencing. Like, I need to see it like a mirror, and other people are often a mirror to me. But I certainly need my alone time, and I think, depending on how you define friendship, I think some people use the word friend when they don't mean friend. To harken back to our first episode about words and what we said about love, like, when people say you're my friend, you interpret that based on your understanding of what a friend is, but they might say it based on their understanding of what a friend is, and it might not be the same thing.
Yes.
Often people say you're my friend, and what they're really saying is I need you.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and I've said this to my girlfriend, who's also my best friend, maybe my actual best friend. I said this for years dating her, that one of the things I love the most about her is that I don't need her, and that I don't believe she needs me. So it gives me the freedom to not feel responsible for her happiness and her well-being. I value the fact that she doesn't put that pressure on me to be the source of her happiness or her joy or anything. And it's kind of one of the greatest gifts a friend can give you is the reassurance that they do not need you, but they want you.
I think that's pretty profound. Yeah. Wow. I have to think about that.
Yeah,
because it seems to me that if you have a romantic relationship, it's because you do need that person. But I don't think that's the way that you see it. That person fills something for you, but it's not a profound need, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, my view on relationships, and maybe that's another episode, but I remember when I was younger, I asked my mom if my dad somehow was out of the picture, if he died or something happened and they split up. Well, really, just if something tragic happened and he died, would my mom be okay? And she was like, "Yeah, I'll be fine." And I thought, "Really? You would?" And she said, "Yeah, I want him in my life, but 99.9% of my life is wonderful, and the 0.1% that he offers to my life makes that 99.9% all that much better. But if he was gone, my life, my meanness doesn't go away with him."
I think that's terrific, and I could imagine that would be true for 2 or 3 straight couples whom I know, where the people have been given or take for themselves a certain freedom to be outside just the marriage in terms of friends. Both my nieces have rather active lives away from their marriage, and it's not romantic lives elsewhere. It's just friends and activities that they do and commitments that they have.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sarah, for example, I mean, she gives me a lot of what I need in a friend, but there are certain things that she can't give me, that she doesn't have the capacity to give me, and for those things, I have other friends that fill those needs for me as a person. And I don't think that anyone has the right to expect somebody to fill their cup.
Yep.
So to speak. It's too much to put on someone to say that they're the answer to all your problems and they're the solution to everything you've been looking for. People are complex, and you need a wide array of perspectives in your life from other eyes to understand what is valuable, and friends do that, at least for me.
Well, you and I are becoming friends.
Yeah.
In spite of everything.
I know. I really tried not to.
I want to turn a corner for a moment and ask this. When I was growing up, just about everybody I knew and was friends with were Jewish, boys and girls. It was almost like a middle or upper middle class ghetto that I belonged to. Everybody was Jewish. The only one who wasn't was my friend Tommy, and he was the exception. We met when we were both in the 3rd grade, for heaven's sake, and were friends all the way through till he died only about a year ago. So we were friends for many, many years. But he was the exception to the Jewish group. My parents were really even worse, in my view. I don't think they had any friends who were not Jewish. Maybe that was part of their growing up. They're coming as immigrants here, poor and needy. And I remember after college, well, when I went away to Northwestern, I wanted to join one of the two Jewish fraternities, and they were very snobbish. They were wealthy Chicago Jews, and I was not invited to either one. It was crushing for a while, although in the long run I met lots of people who I very likely would not have met had I been a frat boy. And one of the one of the guys who was a friend, Doug, came from West Virginia. His mother was a theater person. And after college, one time I was back in Dallas, and Doug's mother happened to be coming to town for some theater event. I don't remember what, but I knew that she was coming, and we invited her for dinner. I was in my parents' home, and Mrs. Tanner came and we had a wonderful evening. It turned out to be great fun. Later, my mother said to me, "Why didn't you tell me that woman was Jewish?" And I said, "Well, I guess I didn't think about it." And that seemed inconceivable to her, that I had made friends without putting them on the chart, Jew, non-Jew. I didn't. And I remember that event so well because I thought my mother, that was the first thing that would enter her mind.
Yeah.
If she met someone new. And it was not for me.
That's really interesting, because I suppose maybe it's a generational thing. Certainly being Jewish and coming from the background that your mother came from, and the atrocities that she had to suffer and face, and that friends of hers had faced, I imagine that there's a sense of camaraderie in having survived something like that.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sure you're right.
And a lot of Jews certainly feel that kind of unified pain.
By the way, while I was in college, I dated another girl, Renee, who happens to have been Catholic.
Uh-oh.
A lovely, lovely, lovely person. One of the loveliest people I've ever known. She was from a little town in Minnesota outside St. Paul. And we had a wonderful semi-romantic relationship. After college, I got drafted in the Army, as I've said. I went back to school to say goodbye to friends who were still there, including Renee. And we decided that we would each go our separate ways. And I told that to my mother, and I think my mother took a big breath of relief that I was finished with this Catholic girl, who very wisely, by the way, went back to Minnesota and married a great guy and had a wonderful marriage. Outside of me. I think he was Catholic, or is Catholic, yes.
Yeah, it's funny how religion will I mean, I guess religion is just a life perspective or a worldview that has a name. Being Jewish, being Catholic, being Muslim, or whatever. It gives it a name to an overall category of worldviews and value systems that you all share.
But I think things have changed. Both my nieces, who were certainly brought up Jewish, they're fluent in Hebrew more than I, both married guys outside the faith.
Was that hard for their families?
I think to some degree it was, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know that my dad's mom was to marry a Jewish man, and then instead fell in love with my grandfather, and that was really a problem for her parents, for my great-grandparents. And I mean, I suppose it ended up fine, but the Jewishness of my dad's side of the family has, I don't want to say it's dwindled over generations. My aunt and my cousins are certainly very, very devout Jews.
Really?
But my dad is not. My dad's brothers. None of them are. And my dad's dad was not, and my dad's mom was, but didn't really raise them Jewish. I mean, he grew up fairly Jewish, I believe, but then he ended up going to boarding school after she died, and that was I don't know, I think like a Presbyterian boarding school or something. So the Jewishness of my family has kind of dwindled since then. In only 3 generations, it's gone from very important to, for me, certainly it's just a kind of a thing I can check off as like part of my heritage, but it's not really a thing that I've invested in. But religion overall, I suppose, isn't a thing that I've deeply invested in, or at least I don't now. I don't know if I've ever really thought about I guess because I'm not religious, I haven't really thought about the religions of my friends or the faiths of my friends, or made any kind of relationship based on faith or any external thing, really. I don't know. Maybe it's weird to think that was so common only 2 generations ago.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Ago.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've drifted away a lot from my bringing
that's
up.
Okay.
Yeah, I went through
direction.
I went through Hebrew Strul and Bar Mitzvah. Of course, sure.
Yeah.
That's what we did in those days. But it was mostly I was pressured to do that. And it never occurred to me not to do it because that's just what we did.
Yeah, and everyone around you did it. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sure. And every guy I knew who got married married another Jewish person.
Yeah.
Sure.
So when you started becoming friends with people who weren't Jewish, did that change your perspective on your faith, or had you already changed your perspective on your faith by then? Or have you never changed your perspective?
That's a good question. I didn't intentionally drift away from Jewish friends, but it's what happened.
Yeah.
Because finally, or not finally, but in going away to college and not joining a Jewish fraternity, I met lots of people, including blacks. I'd never gone to school with blacks. There were no blacks in the school where I went in Texas. None. I met everybody who happened to have been living in the same building,
Yeah.
And they became friends. And that was one of the joys of my college years. I had was supposedly balancing 2 different girlfriends. Ha ha. Neither one really all that serious, but had a number of friends from all kinds of different places, and they enriched my college experience without question.
Yeah. I think I said it in the travel episode, that I want to live in another country for a year, and I think one of the main reasons I want to do that, and as I've thought about it more, I would want to do it when I have kids, because I want them to make friends with kids who are not American, and I want them to make friends with kids of other faiths, of other ethnicities, of other cultural backgrounds, because I grew up in a pretty protected bubble of Westchester, New York, very Jewish, very upper middle to upper class, and that it truly was a bubble that provided me years and years of easy ignorance, where I didn't really have to think too hard about problems outside of that bubble because I didn't really know if any. And then when I left that world and moved to New York, I was thrust into this world of diversity, and I had become friends with people with very, very, very different backgrounds, and it turned my world upside down in a way that I value now more than anything, really, because I think one of the best things friends do is they teach you, again, how to see things in ways that you never thought that you could, or never tried to,
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting what. So I mean, I would say that friends, if there's like a purpose in life, for me, I think that making as many friends as possible is probably a good goal for life, because it
Sounds awfully good to me.
Yeah, right. Like an in-person audiobook about.
Mickey, how are you feeling about what you and I are doing?
The podcast as a whole?
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I love the opportunity to talk about these things with someone who has seen them from, again, a very different worldview and a very different perspective. Because it's not often someone who's 28 gets to spend a lot of intimate time with someone who's 90.
And not a lot of 28-year-olds want to do that.
Which is a shame.
Indeed, very few, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you and I showed you earlier today a few playbacks about people who have heard the recordings of episodes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And got really high marks. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
nice.
there we are. We're becoming semi-famous or infamous.
Yeah, well, all press is good press. I do want to say one more thing. I want to know what you think about it, because it's something my mom and dad have both said to me many times, and I don't know where the phrase came from because I'm sure they didn't make it up. But they always said people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I've always valued that phrase. Just when I think about the significance of friends in my life, because I think a lot of people do measure their friendships based on longevity, and when relationships end or inevitably change, they feel like it's some sort of failure that the friendship didn't continue, especially if it wasn't their decision to change it. But I mean, I know people who I've known for 20 years who have affected me, not wildly so. And then there's people that I have one conversation with on a bus stop and never see again who've changed my worldview.
Yes.
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 And I don't know if I would consider that person a friend, but in terms of the value they've added to my life, I value them just as much as I do some of my closest friends.
I can count 3 or 4 or 5 people who sadly are no longer alive, who were unmatchable friends, irreplaceable friends. They've not been replaced.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be replaced. But they were so wonderful to have as friends. I mentioned in the last episode, I think, the guys from Chicago who I traveled with.
Yeah, you got a picture right there.
Yeah. Gosh, they enriched my life no end. And yet there are some people I've known who I thought I wanted to be friends with, and who, to put it mildly, dumped me for reasons that I sometimes still don't understand. I don't know. And in attempting to get back that friendship, excuse me, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. And it annoys me very much that what did I do wrong? And then I think to myself, I can't think of what I did wrong.
I think people need different things from people, and at different times,
Definitely at different times. Yes.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what you today, again, if you were to give advice to someone who's my age or younger in terms of their search for value in their friendships, what do you think today, having lost so many friends now that you still value?
I would say what I said earlier today: find people who are dependable, people who are there when it rains as well as when the sun shines. And that sounds very cliche-ish, but it's true. A couple of years ago, I had a serious back problem, and I was in bed a lot with a brace. For a brace was on 4 or 5 months, and it was icky. I hated it. And it was during that time that I very well knew who my friends were, the ones who came around and those who did not.
Yeah. I think I have learned that lesson a few times in my life, though my life has not been very icky for most of it. But my sister's definitely learned that lesson. She's dealt with a lot more hardships than I have, and her wisdom, I'm going to get emotional, her wisdom when it comes to friendships has taught me a lot.
You haven't talked much about your sister. Do you want to?
Not today. No, no, not today.
Okay.
Maybe some other time. I'd have to ask her if she's comfortable with it. But overall, I do think that she's gone through a very unique experience in her life, and she's taught me a lot about what friends are and what happens to a person when they have to suffer a lot of loss in terms of their friendships. And the endurance that someone can have, and like you said before, the importance of being alone. I haven't had to endure it as much as she has, but I see the value in it, like a palpable value in being alone, and reckoning with yourself when no one else is willing to distract you. And the human spirit, you become your own friend really quickly when you have to.
That's for sure. When COVID hit, and people were bitching about being stuck at home, that didn't bother me that much. I like to be alone.
Yeah.
I'm very happy being alone. Maybe to a degree that's a bit much. I remember when my parents first left me alone at night, and I think they thought it was a big deal. It was not a big deal at all. I loved it. Had the run of the house, sure.
Yeah, I like being alone, but I do miss people. Like I think that I don't think I have the best memory in the world, and I think that I'm certainly, obviously very ADHD, and maybe that contributes to my lack of memory because I'm not really paying attention most of the time to things I'm doing. And so I find that when I don't have people around me to remind me that something happened, I'll often forget that it happened or not believe that it really did. It might be in my head, which is a silly thing. I don't know if it's I don't know. I said it before, but I really do use other people as like a barometer for where I am in my life. And so the people that I'm attracting in my life, the quality of their character is a good indicator of the quality of my character. And I think that unlike maybe you who doesn't quite need other people to show you your you-ness as much as someone like me does, I think I don't know myself alone as well as I know myself with other people. And maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe I should spend a little more time alone. I don't know.
Well, I'm another person, and I like being with you. So there you are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't think I'm too bad of company.
No.
And I don't think you're too bad of company either.
Thank you.
Thanks for being my new friend. I think we're just about wrapping it up. Let's end this with one more question. Who was your first friend? Can you remember their name?
Yeah, Tommy, the one who I met in third grade.
Yeah?
Sure. Tommy sadly died just before reaching 90.
Oh, wow.
He stayed always in Texas. It didn't matter to our friendship. We remained friends anyway.
Huh.
He was the one non-Jew who...
Yeah. He outlasted all the other
That's
friends.
right. Who I embraced no matter what. No matter that he wasn't Jewish.
Yeah. That's amazing. All right, well then this one's for Tommy.
Yeah.
And I'll shout out to my first friend ever was Michael Ambrose. So to Tommy and Michael Ambrose, yeah?
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to In the Right Direction. This was episode 4 on friendship, and we will see you guys next week with I don't know what topic yet.
See you then.